Good day, America and humanity. So, if you have followed my videos, my name is Anthony Wall. I'm going to show you how to use the hyper-evidential and how and why. When you start doing it, you're gonna discern reactions where the volumes of difference have been assigned, have and employed by a breaching method before it employed the employments as we know them, including natural employments. You have only been taught them descriptions of natural as descriptions of of criminal insidiousness, as is actually recorded when you use the hyper evidential. I'm not even a lawyer. Also, it can be used how lawyers, both sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and victim advocate, and victims, their courts appointed advocates, names with the locations and next to them, had collusions at the crime scenes slash hypercrime scene per proper descriptions of American history and of the histories of our human species body, which is in a semi ancient trap slash S, which is itself in a trap. That was self cultivated by the semi ancient, propagated, roles, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, taken as shock and awe, not realizing to self value uses of the names of the human species, volume science slash S, tactical terror from how it works. For example, with descriptions of how correlation nature works, how logic works, with uses of simultaneous, distinct identities of simultaneous nature. A sequence nature is distinct identity of simultaneous nature from what is simultaneous, a simultaneous nature. Like, for example, being an individual is being a simultaneous nature relative to the species body. Why it's manifest that way. Why the other species bodies have two eyes too. They have quality aspects in nature, group differences, distinct but also non-distinct, male, female, egg, no egg, egg inside, outside, both. I mean, or rather, in other words, the simultaneous. But nature uses exceptions and exception nature in hyper additional ways from the ones we do. So anyway, this is regarding there's a hyper evidential. There are wire crime methods that are predicate acts methods, not just because they are wire crimes, because they are involved with timed uses consciously of intercities, collusions, also interstates, with also their motivations. In other words, relative with the breaching methods, with foreign names. In our countries, what we could do to heal this is by having a military exercise that is designed to cut, instead of making positives out of negatives, that are criminal and seditious natures of positives, as the breaching method designed fact treating nature to do, as the species body's names. This is part of the reason indigenous populations are increasingly valuable to syntax nature, whether positive or negative. Because, in other words, it's where and how the breaching method against every individual body is sickly distinctly against every individual body to keep how sickly non-distinctly from being discerned before our founders were born from across the world already had been done to themselves. Roles replacing what the hypernative education, the foundation, what really revealed the republic for which we stand in ancient times. See, but we stand for this republic abridged originally and still. It is hyper evidentially recorded where they pretend American history needs theory, while the theory they agree on is by themselves shown by a breaching method needs to keep blamed on other things, others ourselves, collusions, were how criminal in other words, criminal insidious natures of positive treatments, like with logic that would say, what caused the American Revolution was people getting sick of tea taxes and other things. They left out how and why sickly distinctly black was involved in culture. And where there are exceptions, they left out how those are in demonstration of the same thing. They're using that to obfuscate where and how the breaching method was core involved. In other words, with identities of logic that have identity relation to themselves that could protract while making revelations, because they're not truths used as lies or to screen lies or for others to. Because this is also relative to where and how everyone's forced to speak through others, because they change it where everyone says, and when we're alone. Even into branch, they've been putting fake things in databases into branch. As the names evolved with the World Trade Center attack, they had want nothing to do with it. But they did the self-value roles with predicate acts with it, with the investigators. Every day used remotely in New York City, cities throughout the world. Certain type of victim / hyper victim came through sick campuses and then was told to speak for the law and pretend integrity, pretend appearances of justice, as the only voices allowed to speak for the law and as the law, as criminal insidiousness natures. Our founders left us to use correlation nature using the simultaneous. You have to do that syntactically. You have to observe where and how branches of government, all sides in criminal and civil cases, the victims and the victims' advocates were used to further finite grouped details and roles with positive and negative treatments, criminal and insidious natures, and roles with identity theft, fraud, slander method manifest sickly distinctly against everyone. And where the hyper evidential shows, even though that's only positive to everyone, because there's one thing that's one thing that is a proper unity. Is a proper prevention of independence at countries A through Z. This breaching method knew that they would have to have fake integrity, it could make them have fake integrity, pretending other, needing to use phrases like criminal foreign influences, only capable of defending that, having blamed other things, others, or selves not only wrong, even when correctly, exactly the way the breaching method uses remotely as collusion with the same crime scenes, the same causes, the causes worst of the worst natures, people that don't know how to describe. And see that it's self-valued when there's more and more of that, because then they can use those descriptions standard at locations associated with such, like emergency rooms for actual healthcare, where they have the police forms, people working with the garages, involved with the intelligence community there, instead using the databases no one looks into to put fake things. In other words, and with the military. Then they had to hide that. So the World Trade Center attack was effectively used to lock their collusions, also by foreign remote uses of them on off intercities locations, the attacking bodies and the counters to it. Self-value roles, collusions with worse involved with it. Remote uses of Saudi's name of Americans, also because they're interreligious spots. There's conscious uses of interpretations of law that are criminal and seditious, pretending not to realize, for example, the importance of why it says at the beginning of the Old Testament, only right up to here is what people need to know, where they have to know it. With the identity of the people of the sciences, they word it that way because it's the identity the sciences share. They're for the people too, and how it's hyper It's worth more and more of itself is being made the identity of volume, where value is nature slash nature is value. So that one that is the three identities of time bound as one, just like with the physical cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall slash S, bound. The past, the active present, in the future. Know that we have an extent of awareness of the presence of here already anyway. Anyway. And we have an extent of the discernment of the hyper identity, its identity of relationship to itself, and no increasing value of that as the hyper simultaneous conjunctive to how we think, conjunctive to how correlation nature works. Correlation nature uses what's simultaneously, not just as lists, not just as what's intuition. I mean, in other words, intuition is one thing showing you something that's greater than and more finite than itself, as itself. See how we can do, in other words, even other creatures. There's a shared consciousness. You just know, to an extent, we're aware of each other's consciousness. You can't have a conversation with an animal, but to an extent, you can. You could mimic their whistle and stuff like that, and then they'll start to, I mean, and just like dogs, you know how intelligent they are. Jane Goodall done this. So, in other words, there's a guy who uses the name on off Trinity College. He used the name Darth Vader. He's one of the police forums involved with a whole bunch of connected murders and untimely deaths, and roles with connected body dumping spots, and timed use /S of that as people on my street involved with roles with uses of corners of buildings and of streets for federal evidence as crimes, federal rules of evidence as crimes, and for uses of that also singularly used, but also with all that causing and keeps negative, increasingly individually grouped and together, all that at the same time with the original kept right back to all locations per uses of it. Recorded tied to consciously to KKK themed, Confederate flag themed, Black themed, and Latin themed roles with a Darth Vader, with cult, and also with sexually themed. And these are also the people pretending to be counters to it properly, where there are recorded sexual and medical abuses of kids. They pretend it's opinion because where and how that's recorded is where and how it's recorded that they've been putting fake things in those databases as collusions with crime scenes and as with roles with remote uses of the names at those locations timed to that. And they're going to speak for integrity anyway. They're going to speak for the law anyway. They have collusions with the crime scene / hypercrime scene in ways everyone missed. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, RICO. Look on Judge Napolitano's website, Judging Freedom, on YouTube here. It's called Judging Freedom, his YouTube channel. And it's in the video section, one of the recent videos he did, he makes note of the RICO statute. Former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act, Robert Luskin. He has roles with various natures of pilots, including the Air Force, with crimes of poisons and natures of identity thefts and frauds with people associated with the Paul Kelly, who also have roles with the fire departments intercities and with the intelligence community on Zion Street next to Trinity College, involved with predicate acts on and off the campus, also on New Britain Avenue, also with judges and prosecutors that had been planting evidences before the World Trade Center attack and with their families and intimate ties and like their roles with the military. There are ones from Weathersfield who are inter a whole bunch of different countries military shared on off intercities locations and along Route 175 planting evidences. Sometimes they have people act and others will perceive while they're told lies, and others will take pictures so they can call people liars as identity thefts and frauds, and how they get away with it so long. Where they have the KKK themed, they have the black families in Weathersfield used remotely criminally foreign influence of people on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the World Trade Center, on off Hangdog Lane, and 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 Two Rod Highway and involved with something to do with the names next to the campuses too, like Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of names involved with predicate acts with drugs and medicines crimes and with their databases and with their lawyers at the same time with names on all sides in criminal and civil cases and victims in their courts appointed advocates, names with the hallways of the courts names, switching names and forging names, switching sequences into databases as rolls from Connecticut interbranch, intercities, interstates also rolls with the World Trade Center attack context names and the locations next to it. Like the Ninth Circuit Court, they're involved with having right before the World Trade Center attack in the court next to it. There were a panel of judges where documents had been post dated from in the court to make them appear as if they'd been handed in late to the panel of judges. So then they ruled on that, and then the response of it, and that was proven, and that Manhattan part of a case slash S led up to a and WSFSB also has roles with the intelligence community next to them, leading up to that and in it with foreign and domestic military, Kuwaiti military, Saudi military, um, intercities, Connecticut military, people involved with Valley Crest, with the name Schedule, involved with a whole bunch of judges with sexual circles with themselves, with their family, extended family members, and with the people tied to them. Where and how the abuses of it with self-valued roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and roles with conversations with the principals and with the deans. There is a Dean Alford recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with some girl involved with the intelligence community on off Web House, where they changed the name of that too now. And it's nothing personal. She pretended to make she was influenced to make fake exceptions to pretend to know maybe where they plant evidences and fake sequence what came before that. And she has roles with wire crimes and falsified police reports with further people involved with the principal child abuser then and now. I caught them first. They hid that by charging me with um, harassment, and they faked emails to do that. The people who had been planting evidences on a thing because untimely death rolls with the untimely death at Trinity College, real or made up. It's involved also with a whole bunch of people tied to Robert Rodriguez involved with untimely deaths with Weathersfield police families and people involved with the locations next to them. Planting evidences rolls with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with wire crimes and mail crimes that are simultaneously tied to their narratives and natures regarding my syntax and their own syntax on Facebook and on the Facebook pages of the Weathersfield Police Department involved with child offenders and child abuses roles with the intelligence community through time. Involved also where distinctly where how non-distinctly is manifest as natures of identity theft, frauds, and instant and fake motivations planting too for how all kinds of foreign bodies. This is conscious uses of how our country is individually grouped and together. Their fake differences, where they spoke about, where they thought regarding the value of how they could, this is a group, they're filming fake things, fake exceptions on each sides of the campuses with the people. I never saw on the inside of a campus ever a Phil Cololo, by the way. One time I saw him he, He has roles with all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes with the intelligence community, people with the name Leahy, attaching little kids and their family members to fake locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to be other people. They have all kinds of roles with different campuses where they're with used by predicate acts methods that are manifest where and how. The breaching method showed the identities of the law, how to describe the law, and how to describe people. Criminally foreign influence.